hall can look peaceful and still be dangerous. This morning, the floors are cool, the lamps are steady, and the smiles are practiced. And yet, the dice are already waiting, small, bright, and hungry. Before the day is done, an empire's breath will snag in its throat. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake in Hastinapura to the sound of courtyards being swept. Brooms whisper over stone. Water splashes from bronze pots. Somewhere a cow complains loudly, as if it has opinions about royal schedules. The air already holds warmth, even though the sun is still climbing. It smells of damp earth, ghee smoke, and the sharp sweetness of jasmine braided into someone's hair. You pull your cloth a little tighter at the shoulder and step into the palace's long corridors. Servants move like a quiet river around you. Their ankles flash with thin bells that barely ring, more a shimmer of sound than a jingle. Brass trays pass by, piled with betel leaves, small bowls of sandalwood paste, and garlands meant for men who like to look holy while doing unholy things. It hits you before you understand it. Attention, thin as a thread, stretched between pillars. No one says it aloud, because saying it would make it real. Today is a game. That's the word floating through the palace like incense. A game. Friendly. Proper. The kind of friendly that makes your shoulders tighten. You follow the flow toward the assembly hall. Not the Pandavas' shining illusion palace in Indraprastha. This is Hastinapura, older and heavier, built to hold tradition like a stone holds heat. The walls have seen too much pride to ever cool down completely. At the entrance, you pause. Two guards stand with spears angled just so, faces calm, eyes alert. They look like men who have stood through weddings, funerals, and family arguments without moving their eyebrows once. Inside, the hall breathes. It's wide, with polished floors that carry every footstep. Pillars rise like steady tree trunks, and high above, cloth canopies soften the light. The murmur is the first thing that meets you. Not loud, not yet. A low weave of voices, nobles, courtiers, visiting kings, each one trying to sound relaxed while listening for advantage. You find a place where you can see without being seen too much. That's the trick in royal halls. Be present, but not noticeable, like a shadow that pays attention. The scent of incense curls through the air in slow waves. Frankincense, maybe, or resin from some forest far away, carried here for the pleasure of men who haven't walked barefoot on real dirt in years. It clings to your nose and makes the whole place feel dreamlike. On a low platform, attendants are arranging the center space. A carpet is smoothed, a cushion is straightened, and then you see them, the dice. They sit in a small dish, pale and clean, as if they've never caused anyone trouble. That's how dice always look at first. Innocent, polite, like tiny teeth pretending to be pearls. An attendant tests the surface of the board with his palm. Another checks the seating, measuring distance with the seriousness of a priest aligning an altar. Everything is being made perfect, as if perfection can protect anyone. A fan sways somewhere, slow and steady. Its soft whoosh almost matches your breathing. For a moment, it would be easy to drift, to let the hum make your eyes heavy. Then you notice who is arriving. Kaurava princes move into the hall with their bright clothes and careful laughter. Duryodhana is among them, shoulders squared, chin lifted. His smile is quick, but it doesn't reach the soft parts of the face. Shakuni is there too. He doesn't need to stand tall, he stands certain. His hands look relaxed, almost tender, as if they were meant for music instead of mischief. A servant offers water. Shakuni takes it, just a sip, unhurried, as if the day belongs to him already. You glance toward the elders. Bhishma sits like a carved mountain, still, solid, impossible to ignore. Drona is nearby, composed, his gaze moving over the hall, the way a teacher watches boys who might start fighting. Vidura passes through the crowd like a quiet breeze. His eyes don't skim, they land. When his gaze crosses the dice for the briefest moment, something tightens behind your ribs. The blind king, Dhritarashtra, is not yet in full view, but his presence is everywhere. You hear it in the way men lower their voices. You feel it in the way courtiers angle their bodies, already arranging themselves around power. And now, another shift. The hall's sound changes, like a drum, being tightened. The Pandavas are arriving. Yudhishthira enters with that steady dignity that makes people stand straighter without knowing why. His face is calm, but you can see the weight behind his eyes. A king walking into a challenge he cannot refuse. Bhima follows, broad as a doorway, jaw set. Even at rest, he looks like a storm being asked to sit politely. Arjuna comes with him, quieter, watchful, the kind of man whose stillness has edges. Nakula and Sahadeva move like twin flames, present, controlled, close to their brothers. They do not smile much. Nobody here has come for laughter. A few courtiers offer greetings that sound like oil poured on water, smooth, shiny, not meant to mix with anything real. You catch a glimpse of the seating arrangement and almost laugh, softly, to yourself. Of course, they've placed cushions as if fabric can stop fate, as if a little embroidery can soften what's about to happen. The hall keeps filling. Silk brushes silk. Jewelry gives off tiny clicks. Perfume battles sweat in the warm air, and neither one truly wins. Somewhere near the center, a servant drops a small object, a quick clatter. Every head turns at once, and then everyone pretends they didn't. That's how jumpy the air is. That's how ready. You look again at the dice. They haven't moved, and yet they seem more awake now, as if they can feel the eyes on them. If dice could smile, these would. Shakuni's fingers hover near the dish, casual, almost affectionate. Yudhishthira's hands rest in his lap, composed, royal. But you can imagine the sensation waiting for him. The dry click against his skin, the tiny weight that somehow carries a kingdom. A conch sounds somewhere far off in the palace, low and rolling. Not a battlefield call, just a signal. Still, it makes your spine straighten. The morning is ordinary in every detail. Sweeping, incense, cushions, greetings. And yet, the ordinary is only a thin cloth over something sharp. You settle your breath, slow. You let the fans hum wash through you again, because you're here, in the hall before the scream, in the moment when everyone is still pretending. The game is about to begin. The first throw will sound small, just a click on polished surface. But you already know what small sounds can do when a whole court decides not to hear them. The invitation arrived 3 days ago. You watched Yudhishthira take it in both hands as if it were a warm bowl that might spill. The wax seal was neat, The paper smelled faintly of oil and smoke from the lamp that dried it. He read it once, then again, slower. Nothing about it looked like a weapon. And still, you could feel the edge. In the corridors of Indraprastha, people kept moving as if the day were ordinary. Servants carried brass pots of water. Horses stamped in their stalls. A priest sang a morning hymn somewhere, steady as breath. But in Yudhishthira's face, there was that tiny pause, that moment of knowing. He knew he shouldn't go. And then, because kings are stitched together with pride and duty and other uncomfortable threads, he went anyway. Now you're back in the assembly hall at Hastinapura, where the cushions are arranged like soft traps. The air is warm with ghee lamps and human closeness. Incense curls up from brass bowls, sweet at first, then sharp in the back of your throat. The dice dish sits between the players like an offering. Shakuni's hand rests near it, relaxed. He looks like a man about to share a pleasant little pastime, the way uncles do when they mean to teach you something. Across from him, Yudhishthira sits straight-backed, royal, calm. But you're close enough to see a sheen of sweat at his hairline. Not fear sweat, heat sweat. The kind that comes when too many eyes are fixed on you, and the eyes are fixed. Duryodhana sits a little forward, hungry with patience. Dhritarashtra, blind on his throne, tilts his head as if he can hear the shape of everything. Bhishma is stone still. Drona's fingers touch his own knee, once, then stop. Vidura stands off to the side, looking as if he's tasting something bitter he cannot spit out. You shift your weight on the cool floor and feel the polished marble under your feet, smooth as river rock. Somewhere above, a fan flutters lazily. Silk whispers as courtiers adjust their seats, pretending this is entertainment. The first throw comes so gently. A small lift of Shakuni's wrist, a soft rattle as ivory kisses ivory. Then that sound, dry and final, as the dice land on marble. Click. It's almost nothing, a sound a child could make with pebbles. And still, the whole hall leans into it. Yudhishthira places the first stake with the air of a man doing something expected, something proper. A little wealth, some gold, some jewels, the kind of wager that keeps a game friendly. Shakuni doesn't even blink. He casts again. Click, click. A murmur runs through the assembly like a low breeze through tall grass, not loud enough to be called protest. Just that soft sound people make when they notice a crack in a wall they've lived beside for years. Yudhishthira's mouth tightens, just slightly. He wagers more. A handful of pearls that once sat at the throat of some conquered king. Silver plates, fine cloth. A line of horses so glossy, their coats catch the lamplight like water. You can smell the horses even here. Leather, sweat, hay, carried in on the guards' belts and saddles. That smell mixes with sandalwood and warm bodies until the hall feels like a living thing, breathing too close. Shakuni keeps winning. It isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, it's just consistent, like rain that never stops. With each loss, Yudhishthira's fingers move against his own palm, a small rubbing motion, as if he could smooth his luck back into place. His ring catches the light, gold, steady, unbothered. The dice are unbothered too. And that's the strange part. The pull of them is undeniable, not like a demon spell, not like thunder, like a quiet, persuasive voice that says, one more throw, one more, and it turns. You watch Yudhishthira's shoulders stay square, but the muscles along his jaw begin to work. His breath goes a fraction shallower. He looks at the dice dish the way a thirsty man looks at water. Across from him, Shakuni's expression stays mild. His wrist stays loose. He is the picture of leisure, as if the outcome is already resting in his lap. Someone behind you suppresses a cough. A bracelet jingles once. Then the hall gathers itself back into silence. More stakes, elephants, great grey mountains of animals with painted foreheads and bells that could shake a street when they walked. Chariots, wheels rimmed with iron, polished until they shine. The kind that make a proud sound on stone roads. Servants bring betel leaves on a tray, trying to keep the mood civilized. A man takes one, chews thoughtfully, and looks as if he's chosen the wrong moment to develop a dry mouth. Shakuni wins again. You can feel it now in the way the air changes. The hall isn't leaning forward in curiosity anymore. It's leaning forward in dread. Yudhishthira's eyes flick once toward his brothers. Bhima's hands are clenched so hard, the tendons stand out like ropes. He looks like a bull forced to watch someone measure the blade. Arjuna sits very still. That kind of stillness that isn't peace at all, just restraint, pulled tight. Nakula's gaze drops, then lifts again, like he cannot bear to watch, but cannot look away. Sahadeva's mouth is a thin line, and he breathes carefully, as if too much breath might become a shout. You are standing right there, close enough to feel the heat of bodies, close enough to hear a swallow. You are standing in a room where men who can conquer kingdoms cannot stop a pair of dice. The game goes on. Yudhishthira's voice stays even as he raises the stakes. Now it's not just treasures. Now it's land. Villages where smoke rises from cooking fires at dusk. Fields that smell of wet earth after monsoon rain. Rivers where children splash and women wash cloth against stones. All of it placed on this smooth marble between two sets of hands. The thought is so large it should make the hall shake. Instead, the hall is quiet enough to hear the lamps. Shakuni casts. Click. A few courtiers exchange looks like people watching a slow cart tip toward a ditch. No one runs to stop it. No one wants to be the one who touches it first. Yudhishthira's throat moves. He swallows, and you can almost imagine the taste. Metallic, like fear, though he would never call it that. He wagers the treasury. It feels unreal, even to think it. Gold stacked in shadowed rooms, seals pressed into clay, ledgers inked by careful hands. Years of order and triumph and building. Shakuni wins it as casually as if he's collected a dropped flower. The hall exhales, but it isn't relief. It's resignation. Somewhere, a conch sounds again, far off. Not for war, not for celebration, just a palace signal that something else somewhere is beginning. Inside the hall, something has already begun, and it does not need a conch. Yudhishthira shifts on his cushion. The fabric clings faintly to his skin. Sweat has gathered at the base of his neck, and the line of it darkens the edge of his collar. He is still the king. He is still composed. But there is a brightness in his eyes now, too bright. A man chasing a moment that keeps moving one step ahead. You can almost feel the math of it in your own bones. Lose, and you must win it back. Lose again, and the only way out is forward. The forward path is the trap. Shakuni's fingers hover over the dice again, affectionate as ever. Duryodhana's smile grows, slow and satisfied. It's the smile of someone watching a door swing open without having to touch it. Yudhishthira stakes the kingdom. There it is, Indraprastha itself, its bright halls, its new walls, its gardens where fountains sparkle in the sun. The palace that made men gasp and laugh And in some hearts, burn. You smell it suddenly in memory. Fresh cut stone, damp clay, flowering vines trained along clean courtyards. You can hear it too. The distant, comforting bustle of a city that thinks it is safe. All of it now rests on a dish. Shakuni casts. Click. For a moment, nobody moves. Even the servants pause with their trays half held. Even the guards seem to hold their breath inside their armor. Then the sound of it spreads. Small murmurs, a ripple of shock that doesn't quite become outrage, because outrage would require action, and action would require someone brave enough to be disliked. Bhishma's gaze stays forward, heavy as a locked door. Drona's eyes lower, Vidura's face tightens, and he looks as if he might speak, might shatter the moment. But the moment doesn't shatter. It thickens. Yudhishthira's lips part slightly. He blinks once as if waking. And then you see it happen. Not a grand collapse, not a dramatic howl, just the quiet, terrible choice of a man continuing. Because now, with the kingdom gone, the world should stop. A sensible world would stop. This world doesn't. Yudhishthira begins to stake what cannot be weighed on scales. First, one brother, a living, breathing prince, his laughter, his strength, his loyalty, placed on the marble like another coin. Bhima's eyes flare, and for a heartbeat, you think he will stand and overturn the entire hall with his bare hands. He doesn't. Arjuna's fingers press into his own palm. His knuckles whiten, then ease. Restraint again. Always restraint. Shakuni rolls the dice. Click. A brother is lost. It lands in the room like a stone dropped into a deep well. No splash, just the knowledge of depth. Then another brother. Then another. Each time, the same movement, the same soft rattle, the same small, clean click. You begin to hate that sound, and still, it's almost soothing in its consistency, like a metronome, a steady beat guiding a fall. The hall smells hotter now. Oil lamps, sweating bodies, perfume wilting under heat. Somewhere, someone's garland has begun to bruise, and the jasmine scent turns heavy, almost sleepy. The strange thing is, your own eyes feel heavy too, not from boredom, but from the sheer repetition of disaster. Loss after loss, like waves. The mind wants to float away. Yudhishthira sits with the weight of it all in his lap, though his lap is empty. His gaze keeps dropping to the dish and lifting again. His brothers are no longer just men beside him. In the cold logic of the game, they are stakes already placed. Across the way, Duryodhana shifts, pleased. Karna's posture is easy, watchful. Shakuni's calm is almost comical now, like a man winning a children's game while everyone politely pretends not to notice. The only humor left in the room is that kind, the kind that makes your stomach tighten instead of your mouth smile. At last, when there is almost nothing left that can be taken without breaking the world outright, Yudhishthira does the next impossible thing. He stakes himself, a king wagering his own freedom, his own name, his own right to stand. It's so far beyond ordinary gambling that it feels like stepping off the earth and expecting the air to hold you. You can hear his breath as he does it. A small inhale, a small exhale. And then Shakuni rolls. Click. The hall doesn't gasp this time. It's past gasping. It's a silence so complete, you can hear the faint creak of wood somewhere in the rafters. You can hear a distant bird outside, calling as if nothing has happened. Yudhishthira sits very still. For a moment, just a moment, he looks almost peaceful, like a man who has finally reached the bottom of a staircase and can stop climbing down. But the bottom isn't the end. Not in this hall. Not with these eyes watching. Not with Duryodhana leaning forward like a man about to ask for dessert after a feast. Shakuni gathers the dice back into his palm, gentle as prayer. The ivory warms against his skin, and you feel it, the next step forming in the air before anyone speaks it aloud. A new stake hovering, unseen, like a shadow at the edge of a lamp's light. Yudhishthira's hand moves again, slow, as if pulled by a thread only he can feel. The dice wait, quiet, ready. The hall waits with them, and somewhere deep in your chest, you can feel the scream that hasn't arrived yet, still climbing the stairs toward this door. Shakuni doesn't wait long. His fingers close around the dice again, and the ivory makes that soft, dry sound against his palm, like teeth clicking in a quiet mouth. The lamps burn steadily, but the air in the hall changes anyway. Not hotter, colder. Everything is gone now. His brothers stand like statues, already wagered and lost. Yudhishthira's hands are shaking, and then Shakuni asks, almost politely, "Is there nothing else?" You're close enough to see Yudhishthira's throat move when he swallows, close enough to notice how his gaze refuses to rise. It isn't bravery. It's something more exhausted than bravery. The marble floor beneath you is cool through your sandals. Somewhere near the pillars, incense smolders, sandalwood and ghee, sweet enough to make the back of your tongue taste like smoke. A cough tries to start in someone's chest and gets strangled into silence. No one wants to be the first sound. Duryodhana leans forward, not like a warrior leaning into a battle, like a man leaning toward a tray of sweets he's been promised all morning. His smile is small at first, then it grows, slow and certain, as if it knows the future and has already tasted it. Yudhishthira's fingers twitch on the gaming board. The board looks ordinary, really. Wood, inlay, polished by hands. And yet, it feels like a blade laid flat. The hall holds its breath with you, that collective tightening in the ribs, like a rope pulled too hard. A few elders shift in their seats, old silk whispering, bracelets clinking softly. Bhishma's face stays carved from stone. Drona's eyes look fixed on a place that isn't the board, isn't the king, isn't anything he wants to admit is real. And Yudhishthira, king of a shining new city, emperor in the making only yesterday, sits there with nothing left in his hands but choice. Shakuni's gaze doesn't flicker. He's patient as a fisherman, line already in the water. Yudhishthira's lips part. He doesn't speak loudly. He doesn't have to. The name, Draupadi, doesn't land like a word. It lands like a dropped bowl. For a moment, the air is empty. Then the hall inhales. You hear it in 100 tiny ways. A jeweled necklace shifts. A breath catches. A sandal scrapes marble by accident. A peacock outside calls once, sharp and oblivious, and it sounds almost rude. Somewhere behind the royal space, Dhritarashtra sits with his blind eyes turned toward the sound. His face doesn't show you what he feels, but his hands tighten on his armrest, and the wood creaks. Duryodhana's smile doesn't waver, it deepens. If there's any mercy left in this hall, it's hiding in the corners, behind the pillars, behind the banners, behind the faces that cannot look at each other. Yudhishthira makes the wager, and the world, your world, the one made of rules and honor and how things are supposed to work, tilts. You're standing in the assembly hall when it happens. Your heartbeat thumps against your ribs, stubborn and loud, like it hasn't understood it should be quiet. Shakuni doesn't pause to let anyone object. He doesn't grant the whole even a single breath to become courage. The dice are already in motion. Click. The sound is so small. That's the strange part. How can a kingdom unravel with a sound that delicate? The ivory bounces once, twice. It skitters like pale beetles across the board. It tumbles and settles, and when it settles, it feels final. Not dramatic, final. Time stretches like warm syrup, slow and heavy. You see the dice, and the tiny markings, and the way they rest, shameless and still. You see Shakuni's hand withdraw, calm as a priest finishing an offering. You see Yudhishthira's gaze go blank, as if his soul has stepped one pace away from his body to avoid feeling the blow. Duryodhana lets out a breath that might have been a laugh if anyone else dared. It isn't loud, it's worse than loud, it's satisfied. The hall doesn't erupt. There's no chaos yet. Instead, you feel something move through the gathered men like cold water poured down a back. One prince's mouth opens and closes again. A minister's eyes dart toward the elders, searching for rescue. Someone in the back wipes sweat from his upper lip with the edge of his cloth, furious at his own trembling. Bhima's shoulders lift as if he's about to stand, and then he doesn't. His fists clench so hard, the tendons stand out on his forearms like drawn cords. He looks like a storm being forced into a jar. Arjuna's jaw tightens, his gaze fixed forward, unblinking. The warrior in him knows what this means, and the man in him cannot accept it. Nakula and Sahadeva stand close together, quiet as shadows, and for a moment they look younger than they should, like boys watching a knife descend. Across from them, the Kauravas sit with their own kind of stillness. Some look pleased, some look uneasy. A few look down at their own hands as if their palms have suddenly become interesting. Karna's face is set. He watches with that hard steadiness of his, the steadiness that can be loyalty or cruelty, depending on which way the wind blows. And the elders, Bhishma, Drona, the ones who have spoken of duty for decades, sit as if a spell has been laid over their tongues. The lamps continue to burn. You smell the hot oil, the faint metallic tang of coins on belts, the dusty sweetness of garlands wilting at the edges. A fly buzzes near a platter somewhere, bold in the silence, and nobody swats it. Duryodhana shifts on his seat and lifts his chin, as if the entire hall should applaud his good fortune. He doesn't speak at length. He doesn't need poetry. He makes the simplest demand in the world. Bring her. Bring Draupadi to the hall. And just like that, the wager steps out of the board and into flesh and breath. A servant is called closer, not one of the high counselors, not someone with authority, a messenger, the kind of man who carries words for a living and usually never has to understand them. You watch the messenger's face change as the command reaches him. At first, he looks confused. Then, slowly, the meaning arrives, and you see the blood drain from his cheeks. He glances toward the elders as if someone will rescue him by speaking. No one does. He glances toward Dhritarashtra as if the king will stop it with a raised hand. But the blind king sits caught between love and dread, and his silence is its own prison. The messenger bows, because what else can a messenger do? He turns to go, and as he walks, the sound of his footsteps becomes unbearable. Soft slaps on marble, one after another, steady as a drum. You find yourself listening to every detail, the rustle of his simple cloth, the tiny jingle of a ring at his wrist, the way he tries to make himself small, as if smallness could protect him. A prickle runs across your skin, as if a breeze has passed through the hall. But there is no breeze, only the weight of men watching another man carry an impossible message. Duryodhana watches him go with the same expression you'd wear watching someone fetch water. Ordinary, expected. Shakuni leans back, satisfied, rolling one die idly against his fingers as if this is all just a pleasant way to pass the afternoon. It's almost funny, in a sick way, how casual he can be, like a man finishing a meal and picking his teeth, while everyone else realizes the house is on fire. But there's no laughter in the hall, only that spreading cold. You're still standing there, surrounded by silk and gold and the smell of incense, and you realize something terrifying. This hall, this glorious hall, meant for justice and counsel, has become a place where a woman can be wagered like a cup. And not one pillar cracks, not one lamp goes out. The world doesn't protest, it simply waits. The messenger reaches the great doors, the guards pull them open, and for a moment, sunlight spills into the hall like an intruder. Bright, harmless, completely wrong for what's happening. Dust motes dance in that beam of light. They look peaceful. They look like nothing matters. Then the doors close again, and the hall returns to its dim, perfumed hush. But the messenger is gone. You imagine the corridors he must cross, long passageways with painted walls, cool stone underfoot, the distant sound of palace life continuing like a lullaby. Someone somewhere is pouring water into a basin. Someone is adjusting a garland. Someone is laughing at a joke that has nothing to do with this. And Draupadi is still in her chambers, not knowing the dice have spoken her name. Inside the hall, Yudhishthira sits as if he's been emptied out. His shoulders sag, but his spine stays upright, held in place by habit and pride. His eyes stare at the board, but you can tell he isn't seeing it anymore. Bhima's breath comes heavier now, like a bellows trying not to roar. Arjuna's hands curl and uncurl once at his sides. A restless motion, the body searching for action when the mind can't find permission. Vidura, steady, sharp-eyed Vidura, stands tense as a drawn bow, looking from face to face, measuring the room the way a man measures a river he might have to swim. But still, no one moves. It's a strange kind of waiting, not suspenseful, sickeningly calm, like standing beside a river at night and hearing the water move, knowing it will keep moving no matter what it carries. The nobles murmur now, but very softly. Not arguments, not courage, just that nervous rustling sound people make when they want to be anywhere else. A man clears his throat and smooths his mustache, as if grooming can fix this. Another adjusts his shawl twice, fidgeting with the border until his fingers shake. Duryodhana sits back, eyes half-lidded, enjoying the tension the way a cat enjoys watching a trapped bird flutter. He knows what's coming, and worse, he knows the Hall knows. Shakuni's dice rest again in his palm, and he rolls them once, not onto the board, just against his skin. A private little click, a reminder. Outside, somewhere beyond stone and banners, a conch shell sounds faintly from a distant shrine. A long, low note that should feel holy. Here, it feels like the world calling for help and getting only echo. You try to breathe slowly, the way you do when you're calming yourself before sleep. In, out. But the air is tight, because the messenger is walking, right now, toward the women's quarters, because the words are already on his tongue. Because in a palace full of gold and rules and elders, a queen is about to be summoned like property. And the horror keeps spreading, quiet and steady, through every crack of the hall, like cold water finding the lowest place. The sun is higher now in Hastinapura, and the women's quarters sit in that bright, watchful heat. In your chambers, it's quieter, not silent, never silent in a palace, but softened. The hush of thick curtains, the faint clink of bangles as an attendant moves, a peacock somewhere outside calling like it owns the roof. You are Draupadi, you are queen, and the air around you usually behaves accordingly. It smells of sandalwood paste and fresh cloth warmed by the day. There's jasmine oil in your hair and a thin thread of incense drifting in from a shrine down the corridor. Somewhere, ghee lamps crackle like tiny patient fires. You are preparing for the afternoon, not for war, not for humiliation, for ordinary things, petitions, small rituals, the steady work of being seen and respected. You've walked these rooms 1,000 times. You know which marble tile is always cool underfoot, even in summer. You know which window catches the first breeze, and which one only offers glare. Your body feels a little heavy today. You're in your season. The palace knows to make things gentle. Soft water, warm cloth, fewer demands. You're wearing a single garment that sits light against the skin because anything more would feel like too much. And then the ordinary breaks. You hear it first as a change in the hallway. Footsteps that are too quick, a murmur that cuts off when it reaches a doorway, the sound of someone stopping, turning, stopping again. You feel it, even before you see anyone. It's the way animals feel lightning coming. The air tightens, the incense smells sharper. A man appears at the threshold, pratikami, a servant, a messenger. His face is the wrong color for palace business. Too pale, too strained. His eyes won't settle. They keep jumping, as if he expects an arrow to fly down the corridor. He bows, but it's messy. Not the smooth bow of court practice. More like a man folding in half because he doesn't know what else to do. You're standing, there with your attendants behind you, a queen in her own chambers, and you can feel everyone holding their breath. Pratikami speaks with the careful voice people use when they're carrying a pot filled to the brim. He tells you the message he has been ordered to deliver, not asked to deliver, ordered. He says you have been won in the game, not invited, not summoned with respect, won. For a heartbeat, the words don't fit inside your mind. They slide off like water off polished stone. Won. Like what? A horse? A necklace? A handful of coins poured into a palm. You stare at him, waiting for the rest, waiting for the correction, the laugh, the confession that someone is playing some terrible joke. But Pratikami only swallows and looks more miserable. You feel your fingers curl, slow and certain, around the edge of your garment. The cloth is smooth, but your grip makes it bite into your skin. You ask him what exactly he means, and he, poor man, trapped between thrones, tells you what he was told, that Yudhishthira lost, that the stake was you, that the Kauravas demand you be brought to the assembly hall. You can hear the palace breathing around you. Far away, somewhere beyond these walls, the city is still living its day. A cart creaks, a hawker calls out, a dog barks at nothing important. In here, the world has narrowed to a single corridor and a single message. Heat rises in your chest, not like anger at first, but like disbelief burning into anger. Your season, your single cloth, your hair not arranged for court. They want you to walk into that hall like this. You tell Pratikami to go back. You tell him to ask them a question that any man with an ounce of sense should already be asking. If Yudhishthira staked himself and lost himself first, what right did he have to stake you afterward? Your voice doesn't shake. Your attendant's eyes widen because they can hear it too. The edge of steel underneath your calm. Pratikami bows again, more desperately this time, and backs away as if he's leaving a room with a cobra on the floor. You stand very still. The marble beneath your feet is smooth, cool, through the thin layer of cloth. You can feel the weight of your jewelry, suddenly ridiculous, gold and gems pretending they can protect you. And you can smell your own jasmine oil, sweet and ordinary, like it belongs to a different day. You are still in the women's quarters, but the assembly hall has reached into your room. A few moments pass, maybe more. Time does strange things when you're waiting for cruelty to choose its shape. You hear the corridor again, footsteps returning, this time heavier, more than one pair. Pratikami reappears, but he isn't alone in the sound of him. You can sense the way the hallway has filled, the way bodies gather when something ugly is about to happen, and everyone wants to pretend they're not curious. He tells you the answer he received. Not an answer, really. A command. You must come. You are their property now, they say. You must be brought before the elders. Your attendants make small, helpless sounds. One of them steps forward as if to put herself between you and the doorway, like a sparrow trying to block a hawk. You lift one hand and she stops. You can feel your own heartbeat now, steady and loud, like a drum that refuses to be frightened into silence. You tell Pratikami again, you will not go. Not like this, not as a thing won on dice, not dragged into a hall full of men who already heard the clatter of ivory and did nothing. Pratikami's face tightens with relief at being refused. Refusal means he can carry something back besides shame. He retreats again, almost stumbling in his haste. And you're left in a chamber that suddenly feels too small. The walls are painted with calm scenes, lotuses, swans, gentle rivers. The room smells like comfort. The air is warm. A ceiling fan of woven palm turns slowly, pushing a lazy breeze. All of it feels like an insult. You stand near the window and look out at the palace courtyard. Sunlight flashes off brass pots. A woman in another wing laughs at something, high and brief. Somewhere, bangles chime like little bells. You're standing here, and you can almost imagine that nothing is wrong. Almost. Then the footsteps come again. This time, they don't hesitate at the doorway. Dushasana arrives the way a storm arrives, without apology. He is broad-shouldered, loud, even when he isn't speaking. His ornaments catch the light like points of hard fire. He smells of sweat and metal, and the sharp oil men rub into their arms. You can feel your attendants stiffen behind you. Dushasana doesn't bring courtesy into the room. He brings the assembly hall's sickness with him. He announces what he has been sent to do, not to request you, to take you. You tell him plainly that you are not going. You remind him, because someone must, that you're a queen, not a servant to be summoned at a snap of fingers. You remind him of your season, your state, the basic decency even enemies sometimes pretend to have. He only laughs, and it is the laugh of someone who thinks power is the same thing as permission. The room shifts. Attendants step back, not because they want to, but because their bodies understand what's coming. No one wants to be crushed under the feet of royalty's wrath. You, Draupadi, are still standing, still. And then Dushasana moves, fast. His hand reaches for you, and not for your arm, like a man taking a person, for your hair. His fingers knot into it, close to the scalp, and the pain is bright and immediate, like your thoughts have been yanked backward. Your breath catches. The jasmine oil that was meant to soothe now makes the strands slip, makes the grip tighter as he grabs again. You stagger a step, your feet slide on the polished marble, and the cool tile that once felt luxurious now feels like ice under a bare heel. You try to pull away. You are not small, you are not weak, but he is dragging you with the strength of a man showing off for other men. Your attendants cry out, and one reaches for you. But Dushasana flings her aside with a casual shove, as if moving a curtain. You feel your garment pull, the single cloth shifting as you fight to keep it in place. The air tastes suddenly like dust, like the corridor has opened its mouth and thrown grit at you. You, yes, you, are being hauled through your own palace. You've walked these corridors with flowers in your hair and servants scattering petals before your feet. You've walked them with laughter, with music, with conch shells announcing festivals. Now you are dragged. Your scalp burns. Your neck strains. Your feet scramble for traction on stone that has been polished to please kings. You pass pillars painted with gentle gods, and you want to laugh just once at the absurdity of it. All those carved guardians, all those watchful eyes, and it's a man's fist in your hair that rules the hallway. The corridor stretches long, and every turn reveals more faces. Servants press themselves to the walls. Guards look away, suddenly fascinated by the patterns in the floor. Some women in the distance freeze like deer, hands to their mouths. You hear whispers, but they blur into one sound: fear. The palace smells change as you move. The sweet scent of women's oils gives way to the sharper smell of men. Leather straps, horses somewhere outside, sweat drying under armor. Incense from a shrine drifts across your path, and for a moment you can taste it on your tongue, bitter and smoky. Your bangles knock together with each jerk of your arm. The sound is too bright, too cheerful for this. Dushasana's grip doesn't loosen. Each time you try to straighten, he yanks again, and your body is forced to follow. You stumble. Your foot catches on the edge of a raised tile. You go down. Your knee meets the marble, and pain blooms, hot and sudden. Not a wound you can display with pride, just the humiliating pain of being brought low in your own home. For a moment, you are on the floor. You can feel the stones chill against your skin, and the dust that has settled into the seams of the tiles. Your breath comes faster, and you hate that too. Hate that your body must breathe harder just to endure what a man is doing with his hand. Dushasana doesn't stop. He drags you on your knees for a few heartbeats, as if proving he can. Your hair pulls so hard your eyes water, but you blink it away. Not tears. Not yet. You try to rise using your own strength, because there is one thing you can still control. You can refuse to be carried like a sack. Your palms press to the marble, and the stone is smooth, almost slick, as if it has never seen anything ugly before. You get one foot under you. You stand again, and the corridor keeps swallowing you forward. As you approach the great doors, the sound changes. The women's quarters had soft noises, fabric, footfalls, low voices. Near the assembly hall, everything becomes harder. You hear the clink of weapons as guards shift their stance. You hear the deeper murmur of men gathered in a large space, a sound like a hive trying not to panic. You hear, faintly, the echo of laughter, nervous laughter, brittle and false. The doors themselves are enormous, carved wood, dark and heavy, with metal bands that catch the sunlight like dull knives. The doorway smells of old sandalwood and oil used to keep the hinges smooth. Air leaks through the seams, cooler inside, shaded, filled with the mixed scents of sweat, incense, and expensive perfume. Dushasana pauses only long enough to announce himself. Then the doors open, and the assembly hall spills into your eyes. It's vast, bright, and cruelly beautiful. Polished floors, high pillars, silk banners hanging like frozen waves. You step over the threshold, or rather, you're pulled over it. The sound hits you first, 100 men shifting at once, coughs swallowed, breaths held, jewelry clinking as nobles adjust themselves, not to help you, but to pretend they are comfortable. You smell ghee lamps burning along the walls. You smell crushed flowers on the floor where garlands have fallen. You smell the sour edge of fear underneath the perfumes. And then you see them, elders, warriors, princes, teachers, men who have eaten at your table, men who have blessed you, men who have spoken of righteousness with full mouths. They are all there. Some stare openly, as if you are a spectacle brought in for entertainment. Some look away so fast it's almost comical, suddenly fascinated by the ceiling beams, the edge of a shawl, the curve of a pillar. A few look as though they want to vanish into the floor. You search instinctively for familiar faces, for your husbands, for anyone who will rise. Your heart does something strange, half hope, half dread, as your eyes sweep the hall. There you see them, the Pandavas, not standing tall like warriors, sitting still. Their faces are tight, pulled inward, as if each of them has been bound with invisible rope. Yudhishthira's gaze is downcast, heavy with a shame that seems to press his shoulders toward the earth. Bhima looks like a contained thunderstorm, jaw clenched so hard you can see the muscle jumping. Arjuna's eyes are sharp and distant, as if he's trying to look through the moment rather than at it. Nakula and Sahadeva sit like men who have been struck and told not to flinch. You feel something in you crack, not break, not yet, but crack. Because you understand, in one cold flash, that even love can be frozen by disgrace. Dushasana drags you farther in, toward the center, where everyone can see. Your hair is still in his fist. The hall is so polished that the light reflects upward, making every face brighter, clearer, more exposed. And still, so many of them will not meet your eyes. Duryodhana's gaze presses against your skin like a physical hand. He sits there as if this is a festival performance arranged for his pleasure. His mouth curves, satisfied, and it makes your stomach turn. You are breathing through your nose, slow and controlled, because if you breathe too fast, you might start shaking. And you will not give them that. Not when you are standing in a single garment, in your season, with your hair seized like a rein. Not when the whole empire is watching to see if you will fold. You lift your chin. You let your eyes travel across the hall again, forcing yourself to see every face. This is the moment. You can feel the cool air of the hall against your arms. You can feel the heat of your own blood, your own fury rising to meet it. You can feel the marble beneath your feet, steady and indifferent. The great doors close behind you with a deep, final sound. And in the sudden hush that follows, you understand something without anyone saying it. The hall has decided to test how far silence can stretch, and you, Draupadi, are standing right in the middle of it. She doesn't scream. She doesn't beg. You feel it before you hear it. The shift in the room, like a lamp flame narrowing when a door opens. The hall has been full of noise all day. Dice clicking, bracelets chiming, soft laughter that pretended not to be cruel. Now the air goes tight. Dushasana's grip is still in your hair, but you don't twist away. You let the pain sit there like a hot coin against your scalp. You stand anyway. The ghee lamps along the pillars send up thin, steady threads of smoke. Incense hangs under the painted beams, sandalwood, and something sharper, like crushed neem leaves. Even the perfume of the nobles feels wrong in your nose now. You lift your chin one more breath higher, and when you speak, it isn't a wail, it's a question, clear as a bell struck once. You ask them, right there, in that shining hall, did my husband lose himself first, or me? It's only a handful of words, but you can feel them land, not on the marble, on men, on reputations, on vows sworn long ago, on oaths that are suddenly heavy as iron. You're standing close enough to see the tiny movements that give them away. A blink that comes too late, a swallow, a hand that tightens on a staff, a ring turned once around a finger, then again, as if the answer might be hiding under the gold. The hall was built for greatness, high ceilings, polished floors, the kind of space where kings like to hear their own voices echo back. Now it holds your question, the way a bowl holds water, and no one drinks. You look toward the elders first, because that's what you were taught to do. When something is tangled, you bring it to the ones who know the knots. Bhishma sits like an old mountain, wrapped in white cloth. His face is calm, but his eyes flicker just once toward the throne. Duty pulls him one way, honor pulls him another. You can almost hear the strain in the silence. Drona is there too, the teacher with the warrior's hands. He has instructed princes in what is right, what is fitting, what is lawful. His lips part as if he will speak, and then nothing. The words don't come. Vidura stands a little apart, not lounging like the others. He looks like a man who hasn't slept. His gaze meets yours, and it hurts, because there is something in it that feels like apology without sound. You can smell the hall's heat now. Human bodies packed together, wool and silk, oil and hair, the faint dust of 100 sandals brought in from the courtyards. A fly buzzes near one of the lamps, too foolish to understand what room it has entered. You are right in the middle of it. You can feel every eye, even the ones that won't meet yours. This is the moment. You can hear your own breathing, slow, controlled, like you're walking a line over deep water. Your question waits. It waits like a king waits for tribute. But the men who have judged 1,000 disputes cannot lift their voices. A cough breaks out somewhere near the back. One of those polite little coughs people use when they wish they were anywhere else. It is the specific, terrified politeness of men watching a disaster and hoping it doesn't ask them for a donation. Someone shifts on a cushion, and the silk makes a soft, betraying whisper. Shakuni sits with his dice nearby, hands relaxed, as if the world hasn't just tipped. His eyes drift across the hall with the lazy satisfaction of a man watching a well-laid trap do its work. Duryodhana leans forward, elbow on knee, chin in hand. He looks entertained. Not like a king, like a boy at a wrestling match, waiting for the next brutal twist. And you realize something that makes your stomach go cold. Your question is dangerous because it's simple. It doesn't ask for pity, it asks for order. If Yudhishthira lost himself first, if he became property, then what right did he have to stake you? What right did any man already lost have to offer another human, being across the dice board like a coin? It's such plain logic, a child could understand it, which is exactly why no one wants to answer. Bhima's breath is loud beside his chest, like a bull held back by rope. You don't even have to look at him to know his hands are curling and uncurling, curling and uncurling. Anger has a sound, and it's in his throat. Arjuna stands rigid, as if someone has nailed his feet to the floor. His face is hard, but his eyes are not. His eyes keep dropping, then rising, like he's searching for a place to set them down and rest. Nakula and Sahadeva look like men watching a storm approach across a flat plain, knowing they can't stop it, knowing they'll still be soaked when it arrives. Yudhishthira, he is there, but you cannot feel him the way you should be able to feel a husband in a room. It's as if the dice have taken not only his wealth, but his weight. He sits with the posture of a man who has swallowed something he can't bring back. Up, the lamps crackle softly. A drop of ghee falls, hisses, disappears. Outside, somewhere far beyond the thick palace walls, a bird calls. Once, it sounds ordinary. It sounds like a world that doesn't know what's happening here. Inside, in the Hall of Kings, your question continues to ring. You turn your head slightly, letting your gaze sweep the assembly again. You're not asking one man, you're asking all of them, the great ones, the praised ones, the ones whose blessings are sought at weddings, the ones who speak of righteousness as if it's a family heirloom, kept wrapped in cloth. And they sit while you stand with your hair seized. It's strange the things you notice in a moment like this. The coolness of the marble creeping up through your feet, the way your single garment clings at your shoulder, and how the air feels too open against your skin. The faint metallic smell from the weapons stacked along the sides, the leather straps, the oiled wood. This is the court of the Bharatas, and it cannot answer a woman's question. Your voice comes again, not louder, not softer, steady. You repeat the knot you've tied for them because you're giving them every chance to be wise. If the wager was unlawful, then you are not one. If you are not one, then this dragon, this humiliation, this laughter, every bit of it collapses like a poorly built wall. You can feel the hall's discomfort turn restless. People don't like being trapped by a clean truth. They prefer muddy truths, truths with loopholes. Bhishma's eyes close for a breath. When he opens them, he looks older. He looks like a man who has carried too many promises and suddenly hates the weight of them all. He tries to speak. You see it happen. The breath comes, the chest rises. Then the silence catches him again. It's as if the air itself refuses to carry the words. You are standing there and you can almost taste the pause. Dry, chalky, like biting into a half-cooked grain of rice. Duryodhana shifts, impatient now. The entertainment is taking too long. The room isn't giving him the easy cruelty he ordered. Shakuni's fingers tap once near the dice, a soft click against the board. It's the smallest sound, but it hits your nerves like a spark. You're standing in the assembly hall when the entire empire forgets how to speak. Then, movement. A young prince rises. Vikarna, one of Dhritarashtra's sons, not the loudest, not the most feared. He stands with the awkward bravery of someone who knows he is stepping onto hot coals. He speaks to the hall, not with poetry, but with the plainness of a man listing facts that cannot be ignored. He says the wager was wrong. He says the one who had already lost himself had no right to stake anyone else. He says, "You are the short wife of 5 brothers, not a possession of one man's hand." He says the game itself was crooked from the start, pushed and pulled by Shakuni's will. As his words spill out, you feel something in the hall twitch awake. A murmur runs through the nobles, like wind passing through a grove. Heads turn, eyebrows lift. Men who were staring at the floor look up, startled to find their spines still inside their bodies. For the first time since you were dragged in, it feels like the room might tip toward justice, not because they are suddenly noble, because someone has finally said what everyone already knows. A tightness in your chest loosens just a fraction, like a fist opening one finger at a time. Even Dushasana's grip seems to falter for the space of a breath, as if he's not sure the floor beneath him is real anymore. But the relief is brief, because another man rises. Karna stands like a blade, drawn halfway from its sheath. He doesn't look at you the way a man looks at a queen. He looks at you the way a soldier looks at a disputed prize, cold, assessing, ready to speak as if words are weapons. He turns his force on Vikarna first, scorning him for daring to challenge his elders and brothers. Then he swings that contempt toward you. He says what he has always wanted to say. He calls you improper for having 5 husbands. He takes your unusual marriage, your fate, your fire, your sacred bond, and he spits on it in front of the hall. He claims that because your life does not fit his neat rules, you deserve whatever happens here. The words don't strike your skin. They strike the air. They change it. A few men nod along, eager for an excuse to stop thinking. Some look away, ashamed again, because shame is easier than action. Others sit very still, faces blank, as if they have turned themselves into statues to avoid being asked to move. You can smell the sweat rising now. The lamps burn hotter, the room feels smaller, and with Karna's attack, the brief flutter of courage that Vikarna brought is smothered, like a lamp covered by a bowl. Vikarna stands there, alone, with all those eyes on him. He has done the hardest part, speaking, and the hall answers him with cowardly noise. A few voices rise in protest, not strong enough to become a tide. Others shout him down, loud and eager, as if volume can replace truth. The sound washes over him, and you watch his face tighten as he realizes what he's up against. Not one enemy, a whole room's comfort. You stand in the center, hair still caught, and you feel the old lesson of courts and kings settle into your bones. A hall can hear righteousness and still refuse it. Your question is still there. It has not been answered. It has only been buried under louder voices. You look again at Bhishma, as if sheer will can pull him forward. His jaw is clenched so hard, you can see the muscle jump. His eyes shine with something that could be fury, could be grief. But he remains seated, bound. Drona's gaze is fixed somewhere past you, past the hall, as if he's looking for a doorway that isn't there. Vidura's hands tighten at his sides. He looks like a man forced to watch a cart roll toward a cliff while his feet are caught in mud. Dhritarashtra, blind on the throne, sits with his head slightly tilted, listening to the storm he has allowed into his house. You can almost imagine his fingers gripping the armrests, wood carved into lions, into lotuses, gripping as if a tighter hold could control what he has unleashed, but he does not stop it. No one does. The marble beneath you is still cool, indifferent as riverstone. The air brushes your arms. Your single garment feels suddenly too thin, too fragile in a room full of armed men. You are aware of your own body in a way you hate, aware of being seen, of being judged, of being treated like a thing that can be won and lost. And still, you do not bow your head, because if you bow, the hall will think it has won. Duryodhana's gaze presses harder now, impatient again, like a man tapping his foot, waiting for his order to arrive. He gestures, small, lazy, toward Dushasana, as if reminding him why he was sent. Dushasana's face changes. You see it happen. The doubt drains away. The swagger returns, the certainty of permission. He adjusts his grip in your hair, tight, brutal, sure. The hall's noise thins again, not because they have found conscience, but because they want to watch. The worst kind of quiet returns, the quiet of an audience. You feel the moment tilt, the way you feel a cartwheel hit a rut. There is no graceful way out of this, not through law, not through elders, not through husbands frozen by their own chains. Your question, so clean, so sharp, has been left hanging in the air like an unanswered prayer. And now, with that question still unanswered, the room moves on as if it never mattered. Dushasana's free hand reaches toward your garment. The fabric at your shoulder shifts under his fingers. A soft pull, a rustle of cloth, too loud in the hush. You can hear someone inhale sharply as if the whole hall shares one breath, and you understand with a cold clarity that makes everything slow down, that the silence is about to become something else entirely. Not words, action. And the hall, having failed your question, is about to witness a violation it will never be able to forget. And then, Duryodhana gives the order that will cost him everything. He doesn't know it yet. None of them do. You feel it more than you hear it, an invisible permission sliding across the hall like oil. Duryodhana barely moves. A small gesture of his fingers, a tilt of his chin. The kind of lazy command given by someone who has never been told no. Dushasana answers it with his whole body. His free hand closes on your sari at the shoulder, and the silk gathers in his fist. It's soft cloth, wedding cloth, court cloth, the kind chosen for festivals and family honor. In his grip, it becomes a handle. The first tug is almost gentle. Almost. Silk whispers against your skin. The sound is too intimate for a room this full, too private for the hard shine of marble and the sharp watching eyes. You're standing in the assembly hall of Hastinapura, surrounded by men who can stop this with a single word. And nobody moves. The air smells of lamp smoke and sandalwood, but under it you catch something else now: sweat, fear, the sour edge of excitement. Even the garlands seem too bright, too cheerful, like they were hung for the wrong occasion. Dushasana pulls again. The cloth slides. Your breath catches, not because you don't know what shame is, but because you know exactly what they're trying to make you into. An example, a lesson, a laugh. Your hair still aches where his fist holds it. Every time he shifts, your scalp stings and your neck tenses, trying to protect you in some small animal way. The marble under your feet is cool, and you can feel the grit of dust that has drifted in on sandals and chariot wheels. A queen's chamber feels far away now. A forest feels far away. Even your husbands feel far away, though they're right there in the same hall, breathing the same air. You glance just once. Bhima looks like a caged storm. His jaw is clenched so hard you can see the muscles jump. His hands flex, empty, as if they're searching for a weapon that isn't allowed inside this room. Arjuna's face is tight and pale, like he's been struck and told not to flinch. Yudhishthira sits, as if his bones have turned to ash. His eyes are open, but they don't seem to belong to him anymore. And the elders, Bhishma, Drona, sit upright, heavy with their oaths, heavy with their obligations, heavy with a silence that is starting to feel like a second wall around the hall. Dushasana gives a sharper yank. The cloth loosens. The edge slips lower. It's happening. It's really happening. And the worst part is how ordinary the movement is. A hand pulling fabric, a man using strength, a room of people watching. No thunder, no earthquake, just the soft, horrible sound of silk dragged through fingers. You feel heat rise into your face, then drain away, leaving you cold. Your heart beats too loudly in your ears. For a moment, the world narrows to the pressure in your hair, the tug at your sari, and the bright, polished floor that reflects everything like it wants to remember. Your mind reaches for help the way a drowning person reaches for air. Not for law. You tried that. Not for elders. You beg them without begging. Not even for your husbands, because they are trapped inside the same net that trapped you. So you reach farther. You reach past the pillars and the courtiers and the jeweled canopy above the throne. Past the city walls, past the dust of the roads and the wide, winding river. You reach for Krishna. He isn't here. You don't see him in any corner of the hall. You don't hear his laugh. You don't catch the scent of him. River wind and sandalwood, and that strange calm that always follows him like a shadow. He's far away in Dwaraka, and still you call, not in the neat, practiced way people pray when they want to be seen praying. In the raw way you call when you've run out of pride. You fold your hands as well as you can with Dushasana wrenching you around, and you throw your whole desperate heart in one direction. You call him by the names that have always made the world feel steadier. Govinda, Keshava, the one who protects. Your voice doesn't need to be loud. The hall is already listening. The lamps flicker. It might be a draft. It might be the gods leaning closer. Dushasana laughs under his breath, sure of himself, sure of the crowd, sure of his prince's approval. He plants his feet wide on the marble like a man preparing to haul a rope from a well. Then he pulls, hard. The cloth slides fast enough to make you stumble. Your shoulder twists. Your bracelets clink together, a delicate sound in a brutal movement, and then the sari doesn't end. It should. Cloth ends. Everyone in this hall knows that. But it doesn't. As Dushasana yanks and yanks, the fabric keeps coming, unspooling like it was woven from the sky itself. A long stream of silk shimmering in the lamplight. It gathers at his feet in folds and loops, piling up like bright water that refuses to stop flowing. Gold thread, red thread, pale colors like dawn, deep colors like evening. The heap grows. You can hear it now. The constant hush of fabric on fabric. The soft slap as another fold drops onto the marble. It begins to cover the floor near his sandals, creeping outward in a ridiculous, impossible mound. For one stunned moment, the hall doesn't know what to do with the sight of it. A few men lean forward without meaning to, as if their eyes might solve it. Somewhere behind you, someone's breath escapes in a thin sound, half gasp, half prayer. Dushasana pauses. Not because he has mercy, because confusion has finally managed to wrestle its way into his mind. He looks down at the pile, then back at his hand, still clenched around silk. He pulls again, faster, angry now, determined to win an argument with the universe. More cloth. He grabs another handful and yanks. More cloth. It keeps coming, obedient to nothing in this room except your prayer. The lamps throw warm light across the hall, and the silk catches it, making the colors glow. It would be beautiful in any other moment, like a festival spilling out of a basket, like a wedding gift dropped open. But here, it becomes something else, a refusal. You're standing there, shaking, your hair caught in his grip, and still the cloth covers you. Still the cloth protects you. Still the cloth denies him his victory. Layer after layer settles against your skin, cool and light, each one arriving just in time. Your knees threaten to give way, not from the pulling now, but from the strain of holding yourself upright while the world turns impossible around you. The marble is steady under your feet, steady as a vow. Dushasana's breathing grows loud. He was built for violence and swagger, not for endless labor. His shoulders begin to rise and fall. His arms tense. Sweat darkens the hair at his temples. He braces, yanking like a man trying to drag a stubborn cart out of mud. The pile at his feet becomes absurd. It spreads out, a small hill of cloth. It nudges against the polished stone like it belongs there, like the hall has always kept a mountain of silk in the center as decoration. You almost expect a servant to step in with a broom. Nobody does. No one can. Even Duryodhana's smile falters, just for an instant, when the ridiculousness refuses to stop. His eyes narrow, as if he can intimidate the miracle into ending. Karna sits with his chin lifted, face hard, refusing to be impressed. The kind of man who would stare down the sun just to prove he doesn't blink. Bhishma's gaze drops to the floor. Drona's hands grip the edge of his seat. Vidura's face looks like stone that has learned pain. And you, right there in the center of everything, feel the strangest shift. Not comfort, not safety, but presence. As if, for the first time in this hall today, you are not alone. Dushasana gives another furious pull and nearly trips because the silk under his feet slides. For a heartbeat, the hall sees him as he really is, not a mighty prince's brother, not an instrument of power, just a man wrestling cloth. He stumbles, catches himself, then yanks again, panting. The muscles in his arms tremble with the effort. His face is flushing, eyes wild, jaw clenched. More cloth, more. The sound of it becomes steady, like rain on leaves, like the river running over stones. A soft, relentless hush that fills every gap where someone might have spoken. If you listen closely, you can hear the hall changing. The murmurs have died. Even the eager ones have gone quiet, because the moment has slipped away from them. The violation they came to witness has been interrupted by something they cannot command. You can smell it now. Hot oil from the lamps, crushed flowers underfoot, and the sharpness of Dushasana's sweat as he strains. Your own breath comes in short pulls. Your palms are slick. Your throat burns from calling Krishna's name again and again in your heart, even when you can't shape the words. You don't dare look away. You don't dare blink too long. The edge of it is sharp. This protection is happening, yes, but the hall is still the hall. The men are still the men. Duryodhana is still on his throne, and Dushasana is still pulling. Time stretches. It becomes hard to tell how long it's been. The lamps seem to burn lower, then brighter, then lower again. Someone shifts in their seat, and the silk rustles like a living thing. The pile reaches Dushasana's knees. His breath is ragged now. He looks less like a triumphant bully and more like a man caught in a bad wager, pulling and pulling, losing strength with every heartbeat. He tries to change tactics. He gathers a thick bundle in both hands, twists it, and gives a hard jerk like he might snap it. His arms shake, his shoulders hunch, his face contorts with effort. The cloth only answers by coming still more. You feel tears prick at your eyes, not the tears of defeat, but the kind that come when something inside you finally unclenches. Not fully, not safely, just enough to remember that the world is bigger than this hall. And in that widening, you sense Krishna's calm, far away, arriving without footsteps, not with a thunderclap, with silk. Dushasana's hands begin to slip. His fingers, cramped from gripping, loosen and tighten again. He shakes one hand out, then the other, furious, embarrassed, desperate not to be laughed at, because now the laughter is turning. Not the bright, cruel laughter that bruises, the stunned laughter of people watching arrogance get tangled in its own rope. It flickers in a few throats and dies quickly, smothered by fear. Nobody wants to be the first to laugh at a Kaurava in the Kaurava hall. But the air knows. The air is different. Dushasana snarls and pulls again. And then his strength breaks. Not in a dramatic fall. In a small human failure. His shoulders sag. His arms drop. The cloth slips from his fingers. He stands over the mountain of silk, chest heaving, eyes wide with exhaustion and humiliation. For a moment, he just stares, as if the heap has personally insulted him. Then his legs wobble. He sinks down onto the marble like a man whose body has finally remembered it can't fight forever. The silk cushions him as it collapses around his knees and thighs, bright folds swallowing the harsh lines of armor and pride. The hall is so quiet, you can hear a lamp crackle. You're still standing, covered, unbroken in the one way that mattered most in this moment. The miracle doesn't erase what they tried to do. It doesn't rinse the shame from the air, but it stops the final, irreversible step. It draws a line, and everyone sees it. Your body trembles now that the pulling has stopped. Your hair still hangs loose, tugged and tangled. Your skin feels cold under the layers. Your lips are dry. Your heartbeat is still racing like a trapped bird. You lift your chin, not because you suddenly feel brave, because you refuse to fold. Across the hall, Bhima moves. It's not a lunge, not yet. It's a rise, slow, controlled, terrifying. The kind of movement that makes even armed men glance at each other, silently asking who is going to stop him. Nobody does. He stands with his chest expanding, drawing in the air of the hall like he needs it to speak, like he needs it to keep himself from tearing the pillars down with his hands. His eyes are fixed on Dushasana and then on Duryodhana. His voice comes out low at first, the sound of a promise being sharpened. It grows as it leaves him, filling the hall, pushing into corners where whispers used to hide. He swears an oath that makes the lamps feel small. He swears that the insult will be answered, that the hand in your hair will be paid for, that the court's laughter will sour in their mouths when the season turns. He doesn't dress it up. He doesn't make it pretty. It's the vow of a man who has been forced to sit still while the world tried to break his wife. And in the middle of that vow, one short sentence cuts clean through everything. I will not forget this. The hall shivers. Even Duryodhana's face tightens because some part of him understands vows. A vow is not an argument. You can't win against it with dice. You can only wait for it. You stand there while Bhima's words hang in the air like smoke. You watch the elders stare straight ahead as if looking away could undo what they've allowed. You watch Dushasana, still on the floor among the silk, blinking like a man waking from a bad dream. And you feel something settle inside you, heavy, quiet, lasting, not relief. Memory. You're standing in a hall that tried to strip you in front of the world, and the world itself refused. The silk remains, pooled like a bright river at your feet. The lamps continue to burn. The marigolds continue to droop in their garlands, sweet and indifferent. Outside, somewhere beyond these walls, a city keeps breathing. Inside, in the stunned quiet after the impossible, you feel the future shift, because vows have been spoken now, and hair that was meant to be shamed has become a banner. And even if no one says it aloud, everyone in this hall understands the same dread truth. This will not end here. The cloth has stopped. Dushasana sits gasping on the floor, surrounded by silk, the way a fisherman might wake in a net he never meant to throw. Lamps flicker. The air is thick with heated ghee and crushed marigolds, and that sharp human smell of sweat that arrives when fear has been held too long. And Draupadi, still standing, doesn't sag with relief. She steadies herself the way a flame steadies in a draught. You're close enough to see her hair. It has come loose in the struggle, heavy and black, spilling down her back and across her shoulders. Not the neat braid of a queen in a guarded palace, not the careful knot of a woman attending a sacrifice. This is unbound hair, wild and unmistakable, a dark river in the middle of a bright, jeweled hall. The men in the assembly can face armies, but many of them can't look at that hair because it says what everyone is trying not to say. Something has been torn, not cloth, not jewelry, something older. The silence is strange now, not clean silence, not peaceful. It's the silence after a conch has sounded and your ears are still ringing. You hear small things you didn't hear before, the faint clink of bangles as someone shifts, the soft rasp of cloth when an elder adjusts his shawl, the distant call of a bird outside as if the world is foolishly continuing. Draupadi doesn't plead anymore. She turns her face slowly, letting her gaze move across the rows of nobles and teachers and kings. She looks at the ones who stared at the floor. She looks at the ones who watched like it was sport. She looks at the ones who could have stopped it with a single lifted hand. And then she does something that feels like a vow taking shape in the air. She gathers that loose hair in her fist, not to fix it, not to hide it, to show it. You feel your own throat tighten because you understand what hair means in this place. A woman's hair is oil and jasmine, combed and braided, a private thing made beautiful for the people she trusts. Unbound hair is a sign the world is out of joint, a sign that something sacred has been violated. Her voice is steady when she speaks, and it makes the lamps feel dimmer. She declares that she will not bind her hair again, not until it has been washed in the price of what was attempted here. One short sentence lands like a stone in a pond. I will not bind this hair. No one laughs. Even Duryodhana, lounging in his pride, seems to shift as if his own bracelets have suddenly grown heavy. Shakuni's eyes flick, quick as a lizard's, searching the hall the way gamblers search faces. Because vows are dangerous things, A kingdom can be lost with dice, but a vow stays. Bhima steps forward again, and you can almost hear the floor complain under him. He doesn't speak like a courtier. He speaks like a storm cloud that's done being polite. He swears again about Dushasana, about that dragging hand, about the shame poured out in public like dirty water. He doesn't make it pretty. He makes it certain. And then he turns that same certainty toward Duryodhana. The prince sits there with his too easy smile, his legs stretched, pretending he's made of iron, pretending he isn't human enough to feel fear. Bhima's vow goes for the place Duryodhana thinks is safest, not his crown, not his sword arm, his pride, the thigh he slapped and displayed like an insult you could touch. Bhima promises that one day, in a different field, that thigh will finally answer for what happened in this hall. You stand so still that the marble's coolness begins to seep through your soles. The hall smells of silk and incense and something sharp, like a lamp wick that's been pinched too hard. It's hard to breathe, not because the air is thin, but because the moment is too full. The elders remain seated. Bhishma's face is carved from old stone, his eyes fixed somewhere far away, as if he's listening for a voice he cannot quite hear. Drona's jaw tightens, the way a man tightens his grip on a bow he doesn't dare to lift. Vidura stands like a pillar, rigid with a sorrow that doesn't get to be loud. Somewhere in the back, a few young princes look sick, not with fear of battle, with the sudden realization that greatness can sit on a throne and still do nothing. Draupadi doesn't collapse. That's what shocks you most. After all of it, she doesn't fold to the ground like a broken garland. She stands as if her spine has been replaced with a staff of ironwood. Her loose hair brushes her arms when she turns. It's soft, and it looks heavy enough to anchor a ship. For a heartbeat, you think someone, anyone, will rise and say the one right thing. But the hall is full of men who have spent their lives learning how to speak. And in this moment, they all forget. Dhritarashtra, blind on his throne, begins to stir with the restless panic of a man who can feel the room turning against him without seeing why. He calls for calm. He reaches for boons like a drowning man reaches for floating leaves. He offers gifts. He offers freedom. He offers the return of what was lost, as if humiliation can be folded up and handed back like a shawl. The air changes when those words come. Not warm, not forgiven, just less tight, the way a fist loosens without becoming a hand. The Pandavas are released from the terrible net of that wager. Their names are theirs again. Their bodies are theirs again. Draupadi is no one's property, but you can feel it, can't you? A release is not the same as healing. The hall has already seen what it is capable of. Bhima's eyes are still burning. Arjuna's face is controlled, but his hand flexes, as if searching for the weight of a bow that isn't there. Nakula and Sahadeva stand close, quiet as twin blades sheathed for now. And Yudhishthira, poor, doomed Yudhishthira, looks like a man who has walked out of a fire and is only now noticing the smoke on his skin. He doesn't argue. He doesn't roar. He simply bows his head, because that is what he does when the world punishes him for being human. But Duryodhana is not satisfied. You can practically hear his pride creaking like an overloaded cart. He wants more than victory. He wants the Pandavas reduced to nothing. And he wants it done publicly, with rules and witnesses, so no one can call it theft. Another game is demanded, another throw, another trap. dressed up as sport. The terms are spoken with that cruel neatness only gamblers and lawyers can love. 12 years away in the forest, 1 year hidden among strangers. If they are discovered in that hidden year, the count begins again. Fatigue hangs in the room, thick as dust. Even the lamps seem tired, their flames bending low. And still, Yudhishthira agrees. You want to reach out and grab his wrist, but you're only standing here, hearing the dice, watching the ivory jump and settle like little white teeth. And once again, the dice do what they were always meant to do. They take. When it's done, there is no dramatic collapse, just a quiet finality, like the last note of a veena fading into air. The Pandavas prepare to leave. Servants move like ghosts, gathering what can be gathered. Cloth bundles, simple weapons, a few heirlooms that somehow still feel clean enough to touch. The palace that once smelled of fresh flowers and sandalwood now smells like a place where something sacred has been shouted down. You walk with them to the edge of the hall, in your mind, in your breath. You sense the heat of the day waiting outside, that hard North Indian sun pressing down on stone courtyards and chariot paths. You hear crows calling from the palace roofs, bold as ever, unimpressed by royalty and ruin. Draupadi goes last. She doesn't look back often, but at the doorway, right at that threshold where the cool marble ends and the bright world begins, she turns her head, just once. And she looks into the assembly, not with pleading, not with fear, with a promise, so quiet it doesn't need to be spoken. Her hair hangs loose down her back, dark against her skin, unbound, unfinished, and as she steps out into the sun, you understand what 13 years will mean. 13 years of that hair, remembered every morning when she wakes. 13 years of that vow, carried through dust and rain and hunger and disguise. 13 years of a single moment held like an ember in a closed fist. The doors behind them feel too large as they swing. The hall stays where it is, pretending it can return to normal. But the air has changed forever. And somewhere along the road, out of Hastinapura, the sound of their footsteps begins to replace the sound of dice. So, after all of that, after the dice and the dragging and the endless silk, what were the ancient storytellers trying to tell us? Because you can still feel that hall, can't you? Even now, even with the doors shut behind the Pandavas, you can almost smell it again. Ghee lamps burned low, crushed flowers under sandals, that sharp, clean scent of polished stone. And under it all, something sour, fear maybe, or shame, the kind that clings to a room. You're left with the strangest sound of all, not the dice, not Draupadi's cry to Krishna, the silence. It wasn't an empty silence either. It was crowded, packed shoulder to shoulder with elders, princes, teachers, warriors, men who knew exactly what was happening, men who had spent their whole lives speaking about Dharma, and in that moment, their mouths wouldn't open. That's the first wound this tale presses a finger to. Not the wager, not even the humiliation. The way good people can become furniture when the room turns wicked. You saw it begin earlier, quietly, before Draupadi ever entered. Yudhishthira sits down because he believes he must. A king is challenged, and a king answers. The dice are offered, and his hand moves toward them like his hand has moved toward them before. He tells himself it's only one game, only one more throw, and you can feel how addiction dresses itself up in royal clothing. It doesn't arrive as a demon with fangs. It arrives as tradition, as pride, as a small itch behind the ribs that says, win it back, fix it, just keep playing. In that moment, Dharma becomes a mask he holds to his face. He thinks Dharma is never refusing, never stepping away, never disappointing the eyes upon him. And so the dice roll, and the mask slips, and a whole kingdom falls through the cracks. That's one lesson. Dharma without steadiness becomes something you can use to excuse your worst impulses. Even the noblest man can be dragged by a weakness he keeps politely unnamed. Then comes Bhishma. You can almost see him still, can't you? White beard, heavy jewels, the weight of years sitting on his shoulders like armor. He knows what is right. Everyone in that hall knows he knows. But he is bound, not by ropes, by vows, by loyalty, by the habit of obedience that feels, over decades, like virtue. You're sitting near him in your mind's eye, close enough to hear the soft shift of silk as he moves, close enough to feel the cold of the marble under your knees. And you wait for him to rise. You wait for that great voice to crack the hall open. But the great voice stays inside his chest. It's such a frightening thing to realize. A vow can become a cage, even for the strongest man in the room. And it doesn't look like a cage. It looks like honor. Drona is there too, the teacher of princes, the one who shaped hands into archers and boys into men. His gaze drops, his shoulders tighten. He tells himself he has duties to the throne, to the bread he has eaten, to the sons he has raised like students. His reasons stack up neatly, like folded cloth, and you can almost hear the soft, comforting whisper inside his mind. Someone else will stop this. That's the second lesson. When a whole room waits for someone else, evil gets very comfortable. It stretches out on the throne like it owns the place. Even the Pandavas freeze, not because they don't feel rage. You felt Bhima's rage shaking the air, not because they don't know what should be done. You saw Arjuna's hands flex, saw Nakula and Sahadeva go rigid, like blades still in their sheaths. They freeze because the trap is perfect. Their king has lost them. Their wife has been called property. Their own honor has been twisted into a chain around their throats. If they rise, they break the rules of the hall. If they sit, they break something inside themselves. And that's where this tale becomes unbearably human. Dharma isn't always a clear road with lamps along the way. Sometimes it's a foggy crossing where every step feels like sin. Still, this is the part the old storytellers won't let you look away from. There is a difference between being trapped and choosing silence. There's a difference between confusion and cowardice. That hall could have changed its fate with one brave voice early enough. One hand raised, one elder standing, one teacher saying no. Vikarna tries, young and trembling with courage, and for a moment, the room even seems to wake up. A few heads lift, a few hearts remember themselves. But then louder voices crush him back down. And everyone learns a terrible skill, how to live with themselves after doing nothing. This is where karma comes in, not as a simple punishment, not as a cosmic judge with a tally stick, but as the way actions ripple outward and become the world you live in. Silence has karma. It's not neutral. It doesn't vanish into the air. It settles into the stones, into the habits of a court, into the confidence of men like Duryodhana and Dushasana. When no one stops them, they learn they can go further next time. When no one speaks, the unspoken becomes law. You can feel it even now, can't you? The way that hall changed temperature, the way the air turned thin, the way the lamps kept burning as if nothing had happened, flames steady, indifferent. That's Maya too, not illusion like a magician's trick, more like the dizzying surface of things, the court rituals, the titles, the rules, the polished floor that reflects everyone's jewelry while a woman is being humiliated in the center of it all. Maya is the way a kingdom can look intact while it is rotting underneath. The hall still stands, the throne still shines, the elders still wear their rings, and yet the real foundation, decency, protection, responsibility, has cracked. That is why the question Draupadi asked is so frighteningly powerful. It isn't only a legal question, it's the question that forces everyone to look at what they've become. It asks whether authority without righteousness is real authority at all. It asks whether rules without compassion are worth anything. It asks whether a man who has lost himself can still claim someone else. And the hall cannot answer because the answer would condemn them. So the miracle comes, endless cloth, mercy arriving from beyond the room when the room refuses to be merciful. And even that mercy doesn't erase what happened. It only makes it impossible to pretend it didn't. The old storytellers want you to carry that forward gently, without panic. They want you to understand why empires fall, not only from arrows and armies. They fall when people in power practice silence like it's a prayer. They fall when duty becomes an excuse to avoid discomfort. They fall when good men decide their personal honor matters more than someone else's safety. And they fall when everyone thinks someone else will be brave first. So, what do you take with you after you've walked out of that hall with them? You take this. Dharma is not only about rules, it's about protection. It's about showing up when it would be easier to look away. It's about the courage to make the room uncomfortable so that someone else can remain unharmed. And karma is not only about what you do, it's also about what you allow. In Hastinapura, the dice were loud, but it was the silence that truly rolled on, throw after throw, until it reached Kurukshetra. You can almost feel night settling now, the way it does after a day too full of heat. A faint breeze moves through corridors that pretend they're still royal. Somewhere, far off, a conch shell is being cleaned and set aside. And in the dark quiet of your own mind, the lesson lands softly, not like a scolding, but like a hand on your shoulder. When the moment comes, don't be part of the silence. 13 years pass. Forests, disguises, long roads, restless nights. Then the war comes. The oaths are fulfilled. But some things don't end with victory. It's the 18th day now, and the field of Kurukshetra feels tired all the way down to the bones of the earth. The sun rises like it has done this too many times. Heat shimmers above broken chariots and snapped banners, and the wind moves dust in slow, uncertain spirals. You're standing at the edge of it all, where the air smells of trampled grass, old sweat, and the sharp tang of iron left too long in the sun. A conch sounds somewhere, but it's faint, as if even the shell is weary. The great ones have fallen by now. Names that used to fill halls now lie quiet under the open sky. And still, one oath remains like a thorn under the skin. Bhima is out there. You can spot him even through the haze, massive, grim, moving with that unstoppable steadiness that makes men step aside without thinking. His hair is matted with dust. His chest rises and falls like a bellows. Every breath looks like it costs him something. Dushasana is there too, frantic in the way a man gets when the world finally remembers what he did. The noise around them swells, wheels creak, horses scream, warriors shout. But it all narrows, until it's just the two of them, moving in a tight circle. You notice it in your own shoulders. That tension, that inevitable pull. This isn't a contest for glory, it's a debt being collected. Bhima closes in. The world jolts. Dust bursts up around their feet, and for a moment, you can't see anything but the brown cloud and the flash of metal. Then the air clears. Dushasana falls from Bhima's reach, not gently, not with dignity, just down, like a pillar that finally cracked. Bhima stands over him, shaking with breath, with rage, with the sheer weight of keeping a promise for 13 long years. His hands are stained dark, and in the glare of noon, you can see the crimson on his palms, like fresh kumkum ground too roughly. He doesn't look triumphant, he looks finished. Somewhere behind all that noise, you remember another room, cool marble, polished pillars, 100 silent faces refusing to meet a woman's eyes. The battlefield is louder, but the memory is sharper. And now, finally, there's only one person left who needs to do something, not with a weapon, with her own hands. Draupadi walks onto the field, not as a prize, not as a wager, not as something dragged. She comes as a queen who has carried an unbound vow through seasons and storms. Her steps are steady, even on ground that doesn't feel like ground anymore. You can hear the soft scrape of her anklets through the dust, a small sound that somehow cuts through everything. You're close enough to notice the details. The edge of her sari has picked up the color of the earth. There's a faint scent of smoke clinging to her hair, as if even the wind can't stop reminding you what this place has been. Her face is calm in that frightening way, calm like deep water. Her hair is still loose. For 13 years, it has been like that, a dark river down her back. It has never been braided, never tied, never made neat for anyone's comfort. It has been a living reminder, even when no one wanted reminding. She stops near Bhima. He doesn't rush to her. He doesn't crowd her. The great wolf-bellied warrior, who once swore with thunder in his throat, stands like a guard at the door of a temple. You feel the air shift, the way it does before a ritual begins. Draupadi looks at Bhima's hands. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't look away. She reaches for a small vessel brought by an attendant, water carried carefully, as if the world still knows how to be gentle. The water glints in the sun. It smells faintly of lotus and clean clay, impossibly peaceful for this place. She takes Bhima's hands, and you can see how heavy they are, how scarred, how human, despite all that strength. She washes them slowly. The water is cool against the fever heat of his skin. It splashes softly into the dust, turning the red mud back to brown. You're right there in it, your throat tight, your eyes stinging from sun and wind. No drums, no cheers. Only the sound of water, and far away, crows calling as if this is just another afternoon. Then she lifts her hair in both hands. It's thick and warm from the sun. It moves like a living thing, and you can almost feel its weight in your own fingers, as if she has placed it there for you to hold with her. She begins to bind it, not hurried, not shaking. One fold, another, a firm twist, the braid forming slowly, like a knot tied in the heart, and finally pulled closed. A single breath escapes her, and it's so small you might miss it. But you're listening now, the way you listen for sleep. Every soft sound, suddenly enormous. And under her breath, not for the field, not for the kings, not for the men who once sat in silence. She lets out one small line, barely a thread of voice. Enough. That's all. No speech to an army, no performance for history. Just a woman finishing what she began in a hall that pretended not to see her. When she's done, she rests her hands at her sides. The braid lies neat against her back, dark as monsoon clouds. A simple thing, an ordinary thing. And it feels like the world exhales. The wind shifts again. Dust drifts across the field, softer now, as if it's trying to cover everything with a thin blanket and ask it to sleep. Somewhere, a broken banner flutters once, twice, and then hangs still. Your mind, though, wanders back, because it always does, not to the roar of war, to the click of dice on marble, to silk being pulled, to elders staring at the floor, to that question hanging in the air, unanswered for far too long. The battlefield has its own kind of silence at the end, when even victory doesn't feel like singing, when even the survivors look around as if they've woken from a fever dream and don't know where their friends went. As evening comes, the light turns honey-colored and tired. Shadows lengthen over Kurukshetra. The smell of ghee from distant lamps mixes with dust and fading heat. And somewhere beyond the field, beyond the vows, beyond the rage, beyond the long accounting of that terrible season, a river keeps moving. Water over stone, stone made smooth over time. A sound that doesn't argue, a sound that just goes on. If you listen closely enough, you can almost hear two halls at once. The assembly hall of Hastinapura, with its breath-held silence, and the open hall of the sky above Kurukshetra, where the wind finally has room to speak, and in that vast, quiet space between them, Draupadi's braid rests against her back, bound at last, still, at peace, if only for this one moment, as the night comes gently down.